suppose you have that video because I'm not coming up there. You can.
Okay, so welcome everybody to SMiSA's Meet the Manager night with Jim Goodwin and Tony Fitzpatrick. We'd like to welcome you all to the call, and we would like to thank Jim and Tony for joining us and being here to take your questions. We obviously have some big news coming out of the club earlier on today with the announcement that Jim has signed a 3-year contract which will keep him at the SMiSA Stadium until 2024. So if I was able to bring in Jim just now, Jim, we know the connection that you have. Can I say that I take it that you're very pleased to get that sorted?
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Of course, I'm absolutely delighted to have been able to sign the extension. It was, it isn't something that's been dragging on for a long time or anything. Had a conversation with Tony early last week. He expressed that the board would like to offer an extension. There was no hesitation on my part, and it was a very simple negotiation that was done over a couple of days, and delighted to get the paperwork signed this morning, first thing.
Still there? So, with Tony, I know you've joined us on the call as well, so I know that Jim's new deal was one that you'd always been working on for a while, so can you tell us a wee bit about what this means for the club in terms of stability and the ability to plan ahead?
Hi, Colin. Yeah, it's something, as I say, the club we've been sort of striving for a wee while. Myself and the board, I know John Needham and David Riley will be on the call, so we've had, as a board of directors, we've had some strategic days, and we're always thinking how to sort of improve the club. And to be fair, as I say, stability was one of the big things, and we all sort of agreed that needed to be brought to the club for it to move forward now, get the right foundations in. And as we all know, even last season with Jim, you could see the club was improving on the park, and Jim does a lot of great work off the park as well, as we know, and the community is a fantastic ambassador for the club. But most important is the performance of the team, of course, and we can see the sort of players he's attracting in. So the board have spoke for quite a while, and I had the sort of honour from them to go and speak to Jim about it, and we got it over the line today. So absolutely delighted. But I think everybody on the board, and I know with the sort of, you can see the media comments for all the supporters, and it's just another big step forward in our plans ahead.
Brilliant. Cheers, Tony. So I'm not sure everybody will be keen to get chatting football, given there's been plenty of it and a lot of it to enjoy of late, but there's a few off-field matters that we would like to briefly cover before we do that, and then we'll bring Jim and Tony back in. So one point from a SMiSA point of view is by the time the next manager Q&A takes place with Jim in the summer, St. will be a fan-owned club. So that is something that everybody who is on this call can be very proud of, because it wouldn't have happened without you and without the continued commitment of our members. So the SMiSA committee, we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes on how our operations will evolve when we become the majority owners of the club, and we'll be updating you on the detail of that over the months ahead. We are joined on the call tonight by at least one of SMiSA's 2 representatives on the club board. I say this because I know one of them is running late, so maybe delayed. So we've got John Needham is going to be here. So he has been heavily involved in everything that's been going on behind the scenes over the last few months. So if I could bring John in just now. So John, you've been on the board for about 7 months now. So what is probably been your most rewarding and your most frustrating elements of your time as a director so far?
Well, good evening, everyone. I think the most rewarding, a bit in line with what Tony has just said, has been around the progress on the park that we've all seen. Not just the results, but actually the squad that Jim's putting together as well. I've been a fan all my life, and I can't actually remember when we've had such a strong squad of players, from back to front. So really, I think that's probably been the most rewarding. In terms of frustrations, Yeah, obviously, I think the biggest ones is missing the atmosphere in the ground when the fans are there. I'm in a privileged position that as a director you get to go along and see the games, but it's just not the same. And I really do miss, the noise created by the guys in W7 and the general push that the team gets, when we need it on the park. And it's quite remarkable how the team have performed without that behind them, and it's a real tribute to their professionalism on the park as well. So I would say that's the two kind of ends of the spectrum, Colin.
Thanks, John. Much appreciated. So I believe we do have our other board representative, David Riley, I think, is here. David?
I'm here, Colin.
How are you getting on? You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks.
So glad you were able to join us. So question for yourself, obviously not having fans in the stadium is going to have impacted on the club's income over the last few months. So can you tell us a wee bit about the kind of things that the club's been doing behind the scenes financially, really just to help steer the club through a potentially tricky time?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were fortunate enough that the finances were fairly solid before COVID impacted. So, I mean, we always live within our means over the last several years, been very prudent. I mean, a huge thanks, it's been said many times, but we can't really say it often enough to everyone who bought a season ticket, who, pays for the pay-per-view TV and all the rest of it, because that's had a massive impact and allowed us to, increase the player budget, as I'm sure Jim will talk about. We've met a lot more often. We've gone over the finances in a great deal of detail, and where we've been able to maybe reduce costs, and we haven't had the same amount of costs, because obviously if you don't have fans in the stadium, you don't have stewarding and policing and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. So it's been difficult, but we have, I think, through a more detailed view of the finances and far more regularly, we've been meeting in Zoom once a fortnight sometimes to go through and see what we can do, if we can release any other funds. Tony will come and say, Jim's been looking at such and such, is there anything we can do? And wherever we have been able to, we've done that. We've increased the budget, we've released funds to maybe go after a player. I think you can see, as Tony was saying, and John was saying, the quality that we're bringing in. So we're able to put money into the playing squad. So we now have a playing squad that actually has value, rather than a lot of loan signings and stuff like that. But in general, it's been difficult through COVID, because I said we live within our means. We're always going to live within our means. But what we're going to do is increase our means. So we're going to leverage all commercial opportunities that are existing. We're going to expand on them, and we're always looking for new commercial opportunities. So we're going to grow the revenue. That's going to allow us to live within our means, but at a higher level, and continue to support the academy, which I know the SMiSA members have voted for a few times in the last year. All these things are important because they give us, the academy essentially gives us the talent to break through into the first team squad. And, if you look back to the likes of John McGinn and Lewis Morgan, etc., that's provides value and revenue for the club at some stage as well. So, yeah, it's been a difficult year, but I think we've done. I'm happy. I'm comfortable that we've done all we can to get the club through, and we're still in a very strong position. Albeit that, as John said, we've been a year without fans in the stadium. But yeah, we're all happy with where we are just now, and just can't wait to get things opened up again and get the noise back into the stadium.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, David.
You're welcome.
So, can I open the floor up now to anybody who wants to fire their questions in? So we've had a few coming in through the chat as well. If there's anybody else who wants to ask one, as I say, just pop me your name and who you want to speak to, and we will bring you in when it's your turn. So the man that was first up, the most keen out of everybody was Colin Bright. So, Colin, do you want to come in? I believe you've got a question for Tony and Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Hi, guys. Just one for both of you, really. Now that you've got the contract signed, Jim, and you're here for a good few years still to come, what, other than the obvious millions of pounds that I'm sure you'd like, what's the one thing Tony and the board could provide you with that would help you improve the playing side of things? And the flip side to Tony, what's the one thing you'd like to be able to provide Jim with that you think would have the biggest impact on the playing side of things?
Hi, Colin. Thanks. Listen, I just listened to David speaking there about the financial backing that I've been given since I've came in as manager, and that's a big part of why I agreed to sign the contract extension as quickly as what I did, because when I took the job on, and you've probably heard me saying it before about the club needing to match my ambitions, and I wanted to make sure that the board of directors and the people running the club were just as ambitious as what I was, and that has been met and more, because every window that we've went into, the directors have always managed to find the relevant funds required to bring in whatever players I've identified, and as a manager, I treat the budget like it's my own, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not one of these managers, I think Tony will back me up, I'm not the type of manager that goes and kicks the door down demanding funds that I know aren't there. We've got a salary cap that we adhere to as best we can. If there is a player that comes along that we feel is worth a little bit more, then Tony on my behalf goes back to the board of directors and states that case, and I'm delighted to say I've had fantastic support from Tony, fantastic support from the rest of the board, and I'm continuously trying to build relationships there, and I think that's the most important thing for me. When you first come into any job, it takes a little bit of time to get to know people, and no doubt they'll have been trying to get to know me, but also me trying to get to know them. And I think there needs to be an element of trust built up between the both of us. And by me signing good quality players, by getting the recruitment right more often, it then I suppose gains their trust, and that is always an advantage, because it makes them think that the money they're going to invest in the playing squad is going to be worth it. When I first came in, obviously last summer, 19 months ago, whatever it was now, the squad did need a bit of an overhaul in terms of, we wanted to try and bring the average age of the squad down. And, the players that I want to try and bring to the club, there's always place for experienced players in any squad. And experienced players are vital. And the likes of Joe Shaughnessy and Richard Tate, and these guys, Sam Foley, albeit Sam is away now, but Sam Foley last year, are invaluable to any successful team. But for me going forward, we've got that experience side of things sorted. We now need to really work hard on attracting the likes of players like Jamie McGrath, Conor McCarthy, those types of players who have got a real value to the club. And if we can build on the potential that we see, then they become great assets to the club. And that's my job as a manager, to do that. It's not about spending money just for the sake of spending money. It's about spending it in the right areas, and always to ensure that the squad of players is healthy, but also if there ever came a time where we had to sell a player, that we had one of value that we could sell and get money in instantly. In terms of what the club can do for me going forward, I think there's always room to improve infrastructure, and there's always room to try and get better facilities and things like that. And those are ongoing discussions. Those types of things will not happen overnight. But the club are as keen as what I am to give the players the best of equipment, the best of facilities available. And something that we're having constant dialogue about is about the scouting department. So that's something that myself and Tony and one or two other directors are in constant discussion about, because it's a huge part of of any successful football club when you've got really good scouts on the ground, watching games, identifying the next Jamie McGrath in Ireland, or having good contacts within clubs down in the academies in England, where we can get out a step ahead of the game in terms of trying to sign the best young talent, getting released from some of the big Premier League clubs in England and giving them an opportunity to play first team football up here in the Scottish Premier League. So that's something that, we're working hard on as a club. And I think that's one area that we need to improve, where we are as good as other clubs at the moment. It's not like we're, struggling in that department, but that's an area that I want to try and constantly improve. And Tony and the board, I'm glad to say, are with me on that.
Great, thanks very much, Jim. Next up, we've got Brian Roy. Brian, would you like to come in and ask a question?
Yeah, thanks, Colin. It's a question for Jim, and I know you just touched briefly there about bringing players through. From my point of view, and I'm sure a lot of people agree, that it's been great to see young Ethan, Cammy, Kyle coming through, who've come through the ranks at St Mirren. This season, it's been very difficult, obviously, with no reserve week. How have you been managing that, Jim? How much can you tell from a player through training rather than through a match?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it's been very, very difficult not having the reserve league, and it's been challenging for the boys who aren't in the starting 11 quite as often as what they would have liked. So we've had to change the training program. It's as simple as that. And early on in the season, when we had no midweek games, it was a lot easier because we were able to, on a Tuesday, always have 11v11 games. And we would sometimes bring some of the up-and-coming talent from the academy into the first team group to try and see how they cope against some of the more senior players. And that's been a big part of our overall fitness. We've been able, what we do normally on a Tuesday, if there's no midweek game, we do 5 or 6 10-minute games. But those 10 minutes are really intense. There's lots of balls on the outside of the pitch. Anytime there's a free kick given, a new ball is flung in. It's not something that I've thought up of. I'd love to sit here and say that I've came up with this idea all on my own, but it's something that Bielsa does at Leeds. I'm always looking for new ideas and new suggestions, and I'm constantly on YouTube looking at different training methods, whether it be in the Spanish league or the French league or the Italians. But I read a couple of different things on Bielsa's training, and one of them was this thing that he calls murder ball, and Leeds do it at the end of every training session for 15 minutes. So I spoke to the sports science team, spoke to Kevin Bain, our physio, asked for their input on it to see if they thought it was something that we could do, because it's all well and good the starting 11 being as fit as what we need them to be. We need the other 9 or 10 players to be at a similar level if and when we need to call on them. And I have to say, those Tuesday sessions have been invaluable for what we're seeing now, because of the kind of injuries that we've suffered of late. It's been really important that I can turn around to a Ryan Flynn or a young Cammy McPherson or anyone else who hasn't been playing regularly, for them to know that they've had those hour-long matches on a Tuesday. It's really stood them in good stead. So that's something that we've had to come up with because of COVID, and it has been difficult, because even as the whole season went on, we were unable to mix the bubbles then. We were unable to take the players from the academy because we couldn't bring them into our circle. So it's been very challenging, but I'm delighted to say that, the staff are constantly coming up with new ideas. I've got really, as much as I've got great support from Tony and the rest of the directors, I've got a really good group behind me, my coaching staff, and I never feel comfortable taking all the praise when things go right, because this isn't the kind of job you can do on your own. It really is a team effort. And Lee Sharp, my assistant, obviously has extended his deal today, which I'm delighted about. But Jamie Langfield has played a big part in since I've came to the club, and even before that. And it's no coincidence for me that Vaclav Hladky was one of the best goalkeepers in the league last year, and you know, Jack Anick is statistically now one of the best goalkeepers in the league this year. And you know, Jamie can take a lot of pats on the back and a lot of credit for that, because he's
a fucking arsehole.
very, very good at what he does. But yeah, listen, he's I'm lucky to have the kind of support I've got around me, and you know, long may that continue.
Okay, no worries. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jim and Brian. So next up, we've got David and Jack McDonald. If they want to come in with a question for Jim, please.
Thanks, Colin. Just firstly, want to start by saying great news on the contract, Goodwin, very well deserved.
Thank you.
Obviously, we've been playing some great stuff, but we've been beset by a spate of injuries recently, and we know obviously that Brophy's out pretty much for the season. Christian Dennis out for, I believe, another 5-6 weeks. But can you give us an update situation on Jamie and also Jake Doyle-Hayes? And also probably maybe one more for Tony. Can you give us an update on any negotiations that have been ongoing with Jake about his maybe a new contract, and whether there's any chance that he might stay around?
Yeah, well, listen, I think I can probably take all of them, Tony, if you're okay with me speaking about the Jake Doyle-Hayes thing as well.
Of course.
Regarding the injury list, yeah, listen, it's extremely disappointing. You know, as I said earlier in my previous question there, the fitness levels of the players is something that we've worked extremely hard on, knowing that this period in February was going to be really, really difficult because of the amount of games we have back to back. We've been Saturday, Wednesday now for a number of weeks, and this month of February is going to be very challenging, obviously. But one thing that I'm pleased about is that we haven't had a lot of muscle injuries due to fatigue. So we've not got a number of boys breaking down with hamstrings and calves and quads. You know, if that was the case, then we would have to have a serious look at our training regime, and the sports science team and the medical team then would have to try and come up with better ways of training. But I'm pleased to say that's not the reason we've got the injuries that we've had up to now. You know, Christian Dennis is torn Achilles is something that can happen any day of the week in training or on a match day. It was a 7-centimeter tear that he had up the back of his Achilles, which, as you can imagine, was extremely painful. And he had surgery on that on Thursday. We got a few staples put into the Achilles, which strengthens it and makes it heal a lot quicker. So hopefully we'll see Christian before the season ends, but probably not before the split. So, you know, that's when we're really needing the group together, because we've got a run of games coming up pre-split that are the ones that are going to decide where we're going to end up. And of course, we all want to be in that top half. Eamon Brophy, unfortunately, had a long-standing problem with his foot. And it turned out when we got that scanned that it had became a stress fracture. So, you know, Eamon had an operation on Thursday. He's had a pin put in that. Again, you know, nothing we can do about it, unfortunately. It's just one of these things that happen. Jamie McGrath obviously dislocated his shoulder against Celtic last Wednesday. A real blow, because Jamie's been, you know, one of our players of the season, I would suggest, and he's had a number of really important goals, but also a number of assists. And we've had some relatively positive news this afternoon about Jamie, with the fact that it doesn't look like he's going to need surgery. So we're hoping after maybe another week, 10 days, once we let that settle down a little bit, and the pain eases off, then we're hoping that we'll be able to put a plan in place for Jamie to be able to get that shoulder strapped up and get some stability around it. And hopefully he'll be able to play a part in the up and coming games prior to the split. The other one, Jake Doyle-Hayes, I mean, you couldn't make it up on Saturday when, you know, we were playing in the game. He went up for a header at the back post for a set play. Nobody near him, and just landed awkwardly on his foot. And it looks like he's got a slight fracture in his heel. Which unfortunately that is probably going to be a 4 to 6 weeker. That's not one that needs surgery, but it is one that's going to keep him out for a number of weeks. And I suppose on a positive note, Colin Quaynor, who we were all really excited to to see coming to the club because of the profile of Colin and the level that he's played at in the Bundesliga and obviously down in the English Premier League. We were all really excited to get Colin a run of games and get him up to speed for the important games coming up. I'm glad to say that Colin, we're going to really push him hard this week in the hope that he can join back in with the squad next Monday. And that midweek game might come too soon, but we would be positive of having him available and in the squad for the game at the weekend. So, if it doesn't rain, it pours, I suppose. And they are key players. There's no getting away from that. Christian Dennis, I'm really, really gutted for Deno because, we signed Christian because of his numbers. He's probably the most proven goal scorer that we've got among the strikers. And we felt we were just starting to see the best of him. He'd lost a lot of weight. He was getting himself into some, really good shape fitness-wise, and he was back amongst the goals. And we were looking forward to seeing what he was going to bring to the table in the second half of the season. But unfortunately, these things happen. It's not all doom and gloom. I've still got a really good squad of players available to me. It's an opportunity for one or two of the players that haven't played maybe so often to go and show me and you what they're made of, and they're all chomping at the bit to play a part in helping us to get to where we want to get to. Regarding Jake Doyle-Hayes' negotiations, as a club, we've made a really, really good offer to Jake and his agent. We have left that on the table. We would be desperate for Jake to commit. I believe that he's made a big difference to us when he came in. I think we can all see the potential that's there as well. He's only 22 years old, and not only do I see the potential of what he can bring to the club this season and next season, but I also see a real sellable asset in 18 months' time, and he could be of great value to the club. So that's why we've made him a really good contract offer. But Jake has got an agent who is offering him advice, and the advice that the agent has given him at the moment is to bide his time and wait to see what other offers come along in the summer. So that's where we're at the moment. It's better for us to be upfront and honest with you guys and keep you in the loop. As a club, we can't do any more. The ball is firmly in Jake and his representatives' court, and hopefully we will get a resolution in the coming weeks. But there's only so long we can hold off as well. And we've made this clear to Jake and his agent. I'm constantly looking for new players. Recruitment is massive, and I don't want to be missing out on potential targets waiting on someone to make a decision. So hopefully, with me committing to the club this morning, it will make Jake and his agent understand that we're all here for the long haul, and we believe that Jake could play a big part in our success, not just this year, but in the years ahead as well. So we'll see what happens with that one. We're going to open a lot of contract negotiations with a lot of players in the coming weeks now that my contract is sorted, and there's a number of them there that we're keen to reward for their good performances, but also as a club to protect ourselves, so that nobody comes in and takes them on the cheap. So we're doing all we can behind the scenes to make sure we get those players tied up. We're in a very good position at the moment when you consider the business that we've done in the summer. The likes of Jack Anick, McCarthy, McGrath, Erlahan, McPherson, they've all got decent length of time left on their contract anyway. So it's not like any of them are going to walk away for free in the summer. But we're looking to extend those ones that we want to hang on to, and that's what we'll continue to do. We don't ever want to be in a position in the future where we're, good players are running into their last few months of their contracts. We always need to make sure we protect ourselves, and if the time comes for these players to move on, then we need to make sure that we're getting the top market value for them.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. So next up in the queue, I've got Martin Telfer. Martin, I know your question might have been similar to one of the ones that's just been asked, but I will, if you want to come in, then feel free to ask if there's anything else you want.
Yeah, it's just like, I think you've kind of alluded to it there, Jim, that we're looking at players for next season? Because I always find that in years gone by, maybe even when you were there yourself as a player, we were fighting against relegation. So this year we're pushing a bit higher up the table. Are we already identifying who we would want for next year and putting kind of feelers out?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as soon as we go into the 1st of January, then we're in a position where we can make pre-contract offers to players. And, you know, those negotiations are ongoing all the time. You know, we don't want to broadcast that weekly, and, you know, we don't want to be going to the media every time we're talking to a player. And when we do speak to players' agents, we ask them to treat everything in confidence, because, you know, the last thing we want to do is to get into a bidding war with other teams about, you know, potential targets that we're going for. So it's really important that we keep that kind of information in-house, if you don't mind. But of course, there are always targets that we're looking at. We're always trying to improve the squad. We're in the fortunate position at the moment where we've got, you know, about 16 of the current squad under contract for next year. In that, I include some of the younger ones as well. But it's not like we're going into the summer, you know, needing to sign another 15 or 16 players. And you're right in saying, Martin, as soon as we know exactly where we're going to be, i.e., hopefully in the top 6, then of course that puts us in a far better position when we're trying to attract better players as well, because they're not coming to a club who are happy with surviving and fighting relegation. They're coming to a genuine top 6 team who want to remain there. And that makes my discussions with these players and Tony's discussions with the agents a hell of a lot easier.
That's good to hear. Good to hear that we're planning. Just one final thing. With the number of midfield injuries, could we maybe be seeing you and Tony on the bench at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to get Tony back, but I'm not sure we can afford him now at this point.
Thanks very much, Jim.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. Next up, we have Lewis, or no relation. Lewis, do you want to come in and ask your question?
Well, mine dovetails quite nicely with that last one, but I was pitching it at Tony. It's to do with recruitment of players from overseas. We've done that recently with great success with guys like Dermot, Sladke, Popescu, although we're maybe shying away from it. Is that something we're looking to continue again in the coming year or two, especially if there are clubs or leagues that are in a financially weaker position because of the pandemic? And I'm sure you're aware, Tony, obviously, that Scottish clubs have an easier time getting work permits than English clubs will do going forward with the changes because of Brexit. Is that something we would look to take advantage of in our plan, and if there's any sort of strategic opportunity for us to link up one English Premier League or Championship club to sign a player and sell them on to them, because they can then sign them by staying at us for a year or two? Thanks.
Yeah, just as you say there, I think everywhere's open for us. As I say, we have been successful over the last few years bringing in lads from abroad and stuff. But as Jim alluded to earlier, I think vital now is the infrastructure of the club with the recruitment and stuff like that. And that's something Jim does really, really well. And I mean, the number of hours he spends, even before lockdown, he used to do a lot of travelling up and down to England, to Scotland, everywhere. Through internet now as well, there's a thing called Y Scout. There's so many things now. So it's definitely something, and I know Jim's really big into that, as to, any opportunity we can get, as long as if we can improve the squad, then it doesn't matter where they come from. But you're right, it's, again, it's infrastructure. We need to get the recruitment, because it's number one in most, well, as number one in a football club, as the recruitment's got to be right. And as you can see, the success what Jim's had the last year or so, I mean, you just need to look at the goalkeeper in the back four to see the recruitment, the lads from Ireland as well. Everywhere's open, and we're open to any way to bring these lads into the club.
Smashing. Thank you very much, Lewis. Next up, we have Graham Holmes, I think, has a question for Jim.
Thanks very much, Colin. Hi, Jim.
Hey, Graham.
Question is, just regarding the growing injury list, is there any scope for any free agents to come in to give you some cover just for the end of the season? Are you happy with what you've got just now?
No, there is scope for free agents, and it's something that myself and Tony discussed actually this morning off the back of the news regarding Jake Doyle-Hayes. So we do feel that we need to, if possible, try and bring another one in. But the difficulty you have at this time of the season, you know, there are a number of players who have released themselves of their contracts prior to the window closing at the 31st of January. They are now obviously free agents, and we would be able to register those types of players. But a number of these players will be free agents for a particular reason. Either they've had fitness issues in the past, they've been out of contract for 7 or 8 months since the summer, they haven't been able to get a club, or you know, and these are the types of things that we just need to be careful with. I don't want to go and spend X amount of money on a player for the next 4 months and have to wait 6 weeks for the guy to get fit. You know, I need someone, if there is somebody out there, and we're working hard on it. We've sent a number of messages out to a number of different agencies representing thousands of players to see if we can find that one kind of naturally fit person who is capable of coming in and playing a part between now and the end of the season. So yeah, to answer your question, we are looking at that particular area at the moment, purely because of the number of injuries that have happened recently.
Smashing. Thank you very much, Jim. So next up in the queue, I think we have Paul Taylor. I know, Paul, you were going to ask a question about injuries, which I think is already covered, but if you want to, if there's anything else you want to ask, then feel free to come in and fire away.
Yeah, okay. I was going to ask about injuries, but I'm asking, is it, see, from being fan-owned in the summer, is that going to have sort of any impact with the club, maybe in the boardroom? Are fans going to get involved in anything, have any say in anything? That's more for Tony, I think.
Yeah, Paul, it's I think it's really exciting. That's one of the big things, as we say, and proud things to say, what it's going to be fan-owned, which is fantastic. And I think I would bring the Kibble in at this part as well, which is always something, as a board of directors, we always spoke about. We always knew this was going to happen, it would be fan-owned, but we also needed a corporate partner vehicle to take the club forward as well. And Kibble, it was the ideal partnership for that. It's a big institution in Paisley, charity, same values, same morals as St Mirren Football Club. And I must say, I'm not just saying it, it's their chief exec, Jim Gillespie, and Mark McMillan, but Jim Gillespie is young guy, dynamic, great ideas, not only just for the Kibble, but we all share these ideas on the board as well. So it's exciting times, to be honest. To be fan-owned is, I think, was everybody's dream, and it has been for a number of years now, and it's coming to fruition early this year. So it's incredible. But I think every fan has, and they've done that. They've been fantastic. We all have our say in many things, but there has to be, of course, a board of directors, the manager, different things which hopefully you put your trust in. It does the sort of running of the club. But we always listen to our fans, because they know their club more than MD. And I'm going to drop the great man, Sir Alex Ferguson's name, which I always love today, because he was a big part of St Mirren. And he always said, that always was in my mind when he came in and says, Tony, listen, your fans, even for your team, they will tell you, they know their players, they know who's doing it and who's no. And it's the same as running the club as well. You can't kid the fans on. They love the club, they know it. So hopefully the trust in us, I say, with us all. And I have got to say as well, I'm not just saying it, the last year or so, the directors were all working together. There's been strategic days to what ways how we can get even more closer to the supporters, but also how we take this great club forward. And well, as I say, hopefully that answers a bit of what you were asking, Paul.
I know that.
Colin, if I could just come in on the back of that as well, just what Tony has said there, and just basically reiterate that point. You know, that was a big part in me deciding to extend today, was because of the way the club is run. You know, and I think when, you know, you look at Tony obviously been involved with the club now for a number of years, player, manager, ambassador role, and now CEO, who cares passionately about the club, who's always been a real driving force behind trying to improve the club, along with now the supporters taking control, and of course, as Tony mentioned there, the kibble. So I think for me, it was really important that I was at a club where structurally everything was sound and it was in good hands. And I don't think you can get a much better boardroom where you've got supporters who are obviously passionate and love their club. You've obviously got Tony there, someone who has been talking the club up for decades. And then you've got a huge charity with the likes of the Kibble, who commercially, I think, can take us as a club to the next level. And I think there's always that little bit of, you know, skepticism when someone new comes into a club that we don't know a great deal about, and we kind of wonder what is their agenda. I can assure everybody on the call tonight that, you know, my dealings with Tony and with the Kibble have been really, really positive. And, you know, Jim Gillespie is one that, you know, our relationship is ongoing. We're still getting to know each other, but you know, my dealings with Jim and Tony have been brilliant, because as soon as I mention something to them, then things tend to get done, which is brilliant. And you know, I think it would be different if we were sitting here talking about some foreign investor coming on board that we knew nothing about. You know, for a charity like the Kibble to be involved with you guys, the supporters, along with Tony driving it, I think we're in great hands, and that's why I had no reluctance whatsoever to extend my deal today.
Colin, can I maybe just add a little bit to what's been said as well? Because Paul asked a really good question, and I get asked it quite a bit around, you know, what will change. I think the answer I usually give, which is, you know, is consistent, is I don't think we'll see a revolutionary change in the summertime when the transaction goes ahead. And the reason for that is we've got a really stable base, and we want to progress and build on that base that we have just now. So Gordon Scott has done a brilliant job, you know, as the major shareholder up till now. And really, we just want to take that on and build on that as well. So I don't think you'll see a radical change in the summertime when the transaction happens. But as Tony has said, certainly now that we'll have 4 SMiSA reps, if you like, on the board out of the 8, it will make sure that, you know, come any key decisions, then, you know, the fans' views will definitely be, you know, up there and considered very carefully. But at the end of the day, we'll have to make what we think is the best decision for the club going forward, you know, and looking at the longer term. So I don't think you'll see fireworks after the transaction. I think what you'll see is hopefully just a continuation and hopefully an acceleration of the progress that the guys have managed to achieve so far.
Yeah, I was actually going to come in myself, but John, you've put it all very succinctly. So I think it was something we in SMiSA have always been very careful to stress, is that fan-owned shouldn't be confused with fan-run. Ultimately, the role of SMiSA as the majority owners will be to make sure that there's guys there that are running the club who are the people who we believe are best placed to be making the decisions. And I guess it's, as John says, I think you summed it up brilliantly. It's a question of making sure that those guys can balance their own expertise with making sure that the fans' views are considered and how things are done. And I guess SMiSA will be there as a route to help make sure that the views of you guys are going to be considered. So if we're able to move on to the next question, I think the next one that we've got is Alistair Scott, I think, has a question for either Jim or Tony. Alistair, are you there?
Yep, aye, thanks. It's really following on from Brian's question earlier. It's about the plans for the reserves and the youth teams for this season. How do you keep these guys motivated? I know a lot of the reserves were put out on loan earlier in the season, but they're now back at the club. Are they getting game time? Are they, still motivated? Are we likely to lose them at the end of the season?
Well, listen, it's been a really challenging time for everyone within our academy, and Alan McManus, our academy director, along with Andy Webster, have been working tirelessly with the rest of the staff, Ross Patterson as well, to try and keep these kids motivated. Your heart goes out to them sometimes because they're coming into training. At the moment, they're not, but they were up until about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But they were coming into training to try and keep fit. But there's nothing worse than training continuously and not having any type of match to look forward to at the end of it. So I've got to give great credit to Alan and his team for keeping the guys active and continuously sending out the programs, having Zoom calls like we're having now to just try and keep them interested, and hopefully too much damage won't have been done to their development. The lads have done the best they could, but unfortunately, with the pandemic and the way things are, we haven't been able to arrange any type of games for them. So it's been very, very difficult, but hopefully we'll be able to get everything back on track in the summer once things sort themselves out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alistair. Next up, we've got Paul Mcnew. Paul, you want to come in?
Jim, Tony, good to see you. Jim, congratulations. I don't know if this is for Jim or for Tony, but it's probably more, I think you touched on it, Jim, we would like to sign somebody like Tony in our midfield, but I think more probably the pair of yous having that really great winning mentality that I think our club's always had. Tony, I kind of worked with you for many years, and when I was a young coach, you used to tell me about what Sir Alex used to say a lot of the times, and I think this season we've seen that winning mentality. He used to always say to me, Paul, I hate the fact that if we beat Celtic, people think that's our season done. We should be, we're a bigger club than that. We shouldn't just think that that's it done. So probably two-part question. One, Jim, probably how do we install that great winning mentality into players that don't think beating either side of the Old Firm is good enough? It's this whole season, and I think both of you as players had that in your locker, and can we do that in there? And maybe just a cheeky one to ask you both. You are both legends of the club. Is there any players at the moment in time within our current squad that you say could potentially go on and become St Mirren legends? Let's say that. I know it's difficult because it's difficult times, but I think more that, how do you create that winning mentality now that is probably what you both had, and as an MD would become a bit of a legend? And Tony,
listen, thanks, Paul, for the question. And look, I mean, for me, that mentality and that mindset within the club comes from the leadership at the top. It's as simple as that. And Tony, in his position as CEO, and the message that he gives out in the media and to you guys, and then from my point of view, the message that I'm continuously driving with my staff and with the players. And people will be sick and tired of listening to me talking about it, but I've mentioned it from day one. I wouldn't have came to this club, I wouldn't have came back if I didn't believe that Tony and the board of directors were as keen as I was to take the club forward. And that mentality needs to be within the boardroom, but it also needs to be within my backroom team, to then hopefully that will feed off into the players. Recruitment, as we've spoke about, is vital. And I'm big on obviously trying to employ really good technical footballers, but I'm huge on character, Paul. And that's something that I think is evident in the recruitment that we've done in the summer. Jack Anick is a real strong character, a leader, a real positive influence on the group, on the back four in front of him, gives them all great reassurance. Joe Shaughnessy is a leader. He's been a captain wherever he's been. He's had his one or two mistakes that he's made this year, which is only natural, but because he's such a strong character, he's able to bounce back from those mistakes that he made and some one or two poor decisions. Richard Tate is a leader, is a warrior. Captain Motherwell, numerous occasions during his time, brought them into a third place finish to cup finals. Marcus Fraser again. So I could go through the whole team, Paul. I don't like signing good footballers that have not got any heart or that have not got any determination or any ambition. I don't ever want to sign a young player like a Jamie McGrath, or I don't ever want to bring a Kyle McAllister back to the club in the hope that they're going to stay here for the next 10 or 15 years. I want them to give us 2 or 3 really good years, and then hopefully attract the interest of a bigger and better club where they can go and earn themselves some really good money and look after their family for the rest of their lives. That's what I want. But, it's up to me to continue to drive that mindset within the group. And that starts on the training ground. It's as simple as that. Whenever we do games, small-sided games, we do 4-minute games a lot. And we had an instance today, for instance, just without boring you, but one of the teams was 3-1 down. There was only 90 seconds left on my watch, and that team that was 3-1 down won 4-3. They scored 3 goals in 90 seconds. And that's the mentality that I'm continuously driving. And I stopped the training at that point, and I told them, I said, you were 3-1 down 90 seconds ago. You've managed to win the game. Yeah. So that's where we never, ever throw in the towel. We never give up. That's always been my mindset whenever I cross that white line. Regardless of how the result is going, you've got to take some pride in your performance. You've got to know who you're representing. We're not just representing our families when we pull on the black and white jersey. We're representing the town of Paisley and thousands of people all over the world watching us. So I'm glad to say that character and that mindset is within this group in abundance, and that will remain there for as long as I'm here.
If I can just add to that, Jim, you talk about that mindset. We see it all the time with the manager there himself and the players. And one of the best ones I can put this year was, I must admit, was the Rangers game when we're winning 2-1 and they scored in the last minute, and the team just went for that. Rangers, I think they were shocked, and that's the sort of mentality to win that game 3-2 that night was incredible. No, that's what they talk about, mentality.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you very much. So next up, we have got George Mitchell. George, do you want to come in and ask a question?
Thanks, Colin. Well, I just want to say that, a big thank you to both Tony and to Jim. And it's a great time to be a bud, because I remember not a few seasons ago, Somerset Park, it looked as if we were heading out of the championship. And now we're looking at the top 6. We've beaten Rangers and Celtic. We've been in a semi-final. So it's just because I was saying to the guys that I play golf with, I thought I was going to have to be hospitalised to have my smile removed, and that hasn't happened for a while as a bud, So it's just, and everybody, and also I watched the games that's on TV, and it's just great. And with SMiSA, you now feel that you're part of the club. My grandpa used to go to all the meetings many years ago, So just a big thank you to everybody involved. It's just been absolutely great, because at that time I couldn't believe it. I thought, and I arrived back in my cup of tea as John Sutton scored, and I thought, we've got hope. And since then, we haven't looked back. We literally haven't looked back, So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, George. And listen, goosebumps listening to you, honestly, because that's the kind of reaction we want from our fans, and there's going to be a number of ups and downs along the way. We've already had a sticky spell away back in September, early October, but we were able to get through it. And I think, for someone like yourself, who has obviously seen the club through thick and thin, to come out and speak so positively about the current situation gives me great satisfaction. And we don't want this season just to be a one-off. We don't want this to be the year where we beat Celtic and Rangers and then we don't go and do it again for another 3 or 4 years. We want genuinely, I know talk is cheap. I know, we put ourselves out there at the start of the season. We made a lot of bold statements, both myself and Tony, regarding top six. We got laughed at by a lot of people. A lot of journalists shot us down in the early weeks and months and told us to get real. An ex-manager, I think, got into a social media spat with a number of fans saying that it was unrealistic and what have you. And it doesn't really bother me what people, and I keep saying this to the players, and we need to create a siege mentality as a football club and as a town, if you like. And it doesn't bother me what anyone else says about my team. It doesn't bother me if there's ever negativity that come our way. I know if we stick together, I know if the team sticks together, the club from director level right down through the ranks to the academy, and you, the supporters, if we all stick together, then we've got a much greater chance of being successful. And to do that, you need stability. To do that, you need a manager who's going to be at the realm for a number of years to implement the kind of ideas that I want to implement, to make the kind of changes that we've had to make in just 18 months. We've come a hell of a long way from when I first came through the door. And I'm not taking all the credit for it, because I've had fantastic support from Tony, from the board financially, and from a backroom staff. But these things don't happen overnight, and we may have another little dip along the way. We may have a few results that don't quite go our way, but for me, that's not the time to panic. It's the time for us all to come even closer together and be even stronger and fight our way through it. And to do that, we need the right characters within the club. We need the right mindset. And as I said, George, it's great to hear you, and I hope in another 3 months' time you're just as happy, because we've managed to achieve what we've set out at the start of the season, which will be top six football, hopefully.
Jim, and I've got a wee speculation on it in myself personally.
Thank you. Hopefully that comes true.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. Next up, we've got Ronald Craig. Ronald, are you able to take yourself off mute and ask your question?
I think so, yeah. Can you see me there? Yeah. It was on the finances, actually. I was listening earlier on, it was positive. And for one, I was also astonished that we'd actually signed somebody of the quality of Eamon Brophy. So I was really, the point was really around the pay-per-view TV, actually, as I spent onto that. And if anyone at Tony's level was able to sort of advise what sort of revenue we're pulling in through this. I don't know whether it's been on any of the blogs or anything like that, but I don't look at that sort of stuff. But what I'm interested to know how many people are actually watching the pay-per-view from particularly the away clubs, and say Celtic last week. Is it in the thousands or the tens of thousands for something like that? That was the point I would want to make there.
Yeah. Well, if you want me to take that,
yeah, totally, thanks.
Yeah, good man. The pay-per-view has been, we'll say, a godsend in many ways as well. And it's great where our supporters are supporting that as well. I know for season tickets, and that's one of the things we were delighted to be able to do as a club, was to let our season tickets, of course, watch the games. But by that, there has been a good uplift in a lot of the games, and it's so vital to the club that happens. It gives us extra revenue to bring in, and that's how we can hopefully go for a better quality of player as well. But it goes for different sort of ends. If you again, most of when you're playing Celtic and Rangers, it's on Sky TV or one of the major sports channels, so we're not allowed to sort of run them. We have had a Celtic game which wasn't on Sky, which was pretty successful. But generally, we've got between maybe 1,800 to 2,000 fans in over the period of time, which has been most welcome for the club. Honestly, it's been, I keep saying a godsend, but it's gave us that bit extra. And I think the quality is getting better as well. That was something in the strategic days as well, with all the board and stuff like that. We're trying to get the quality of everything up within the club. Jim mentioned it earlier about the facilities, all the different stuff. But yeah, get back to the TV thing. It's honestly, it's a big plus for us.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tony. I think there was a next question that we've got is from Donald Falk. Donald, are you able to come in?
Yeah, I think I'm here. Greetings from Oakland, California. I feel a little presumptuous giving advice on player acquisition, given the great job that Tony and Jim have done over the past year and beyond in Tony's case. But one thing that struck my mind living in Oakland, which is also a smaller city, about 10 or 12 miles away from a big city that looks down on us, and we look down on them. We've got a club here that made it into the second division based on fan support, started in the third year of the club, and they sold out their ground, and they're signing people, as you can imagine, from all over the place, trying to bulk up the squad to move up 2 levels. And I wondered if, and I don't know the economics of this or whether there are any economics. They've got some kind of relationship with St. Pauli in Germany now. And I wondered if there are, sort of sister cities, sister club relationships with teams, a level up, or in this case, a level down, that have players that want to move up, but maybe can't make it to MLS or the Premier League or English Championship, but need full-time football. There are a lot of people in the USL, a lot of teenagers that, someday may play MLS, but they're playing a lower grade of football than the Scottish Premier by a lot. And there are also players that came over from all over the world. And I think there are players like that in other countries, and particularly those like us that play a different season. And so, somebody's been on the bench in through the summer, maybe really ready to play in a Scottish Premier season. So I just threw that out there as a possibility. There are a lot of cities that, have larger neighbors that have a lot in common with Paisley. And I'd like to see, maybe there's some opportunities here and there around the world.
Yeah, hiya, Donald. And yeah, you make a lot of great points there. And it is something that, we're continuously looking at. We try this year, had a number of meetings arranged with some of the big Premier League clubs, but unfortunately, because of COVID, we weren't able to fulfill those meetings. I wanted to try and get down to Everton, to Liverpool, to Manchester United and Man City, and sit with some of the academy directors down there and see if there was a possibility for us to maybe take 1 or 2 of their best prospects and give them the opportunity to play in the Premier League. We had a really successful loan with Norwich City last year with Akinfenwa, who came up the left-sided centre-half. And we've been in constant dialogue with Norwich about the next crop of players that they've got coming up. But, it is something that we're continuously looking at. On the other side of that, on the flip side of that, we're also constantly looking at some of the lower league teams in Scotland, the Championship level, League One, League Two, where we can possibly send some of our good young talent coming through that maybe aren't quite ready to make that step up into the first team. And, I'm a big believer that these kids need to play senior football from about 18 years old onwards at least. And it's really important that if the pathway isn't quite open yet here at St Mirren for them, that we generate that somewhere else and make sure that they get those experiences. Regarding your point about the fan base and everything else, that's something that I'm really, really keen on trying to improve as well, because I look back to the 2013 Cup final. We had in excess of 20,000 people in the St Mirren end. Now, granted, a number of those were family and friends who had came to support, but if we could get 50% of those people that came, the glory hunters that came to Hampden that day, and get them into the stadium on a more consistent basis, then, in turn, that will generate far greater revenue from us. If we could get the season books from 3,500 up to 5,000, that would make a huge difference to obviously my playing budget, which is important, which enables us to put better players on the park, but also the club as a whole to maybe employ better staff and bring in more staff and maybe develop certain areas of the training ground that we think needs done. So these are all things that we're looking at to enable us to get more fans through the gates the responsibility is on me to make sure that the product on the park is worth coming to see and it's worth coming to pay money to watch. So that's something that we're continuously trying to do. You know, signings of the likes of Eamon Brophy are big statements for the club. And, you know, obviously Eamon has had that injury problem, and I think it showed in some of his performances. He wasn't quite at the level we all know he's capable of being at, but the reason being he was playing with a fractured bone in his foot. So when we get Eamon fully fit and firing on all cylinders, then Eamon will score the goals, which will ultimately bring more fans through the gates, which will help us generate more income, and will make us a better commercial proposition to all of the local businesses out there, and not just local businesses, but bigger businesses again, where hopefully that will generate more income. So hopefully that answered the 2 or 3 different parts of your question, Donald. And yeah, but you make some real valid points, and they are things that we're constantly looking at.
Thank you, thank you. I'll try to hook you up with the Roots management. They could use some, you know, some of your lads could get some playing time out here in the summer.
That would be great.
All right.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Would be brilliant in California, Tony.
Sometimes.
Thank you very much, Jim. And Donald, I think you might be the furthest flung member on the call. So if anybody can beat Oakland, California in terms of distance from Paisley, then let us know. So we've got time for a couple more questions, and then I think Jim has got a presentation for us. So we're going to try and share screens. But I think next in the queue, I've got Ian Jones. I think there's a question for Tony. Ian, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks. So I've got 2 questions, and one relates to the season ticket holder access. Now, obviously, this year, you know, we've proven that it's a viable option. In future, if season ticket holders can't attend games, would there be the opportunity to watch that on the channel, the TV channel? And my final question, we're 5 years or 6 years away from the 150th anniversary of our club. And I was present along with quite a few people on this call, probably at the game against Liverpool. Who would you most like to bring to our stadium in 6 years' time to celebrate the 150th? That's me future thinking.
Yeah, it's a good questions. First and foremost, the season ticket thing is, and again, I'm going to repeat what David and John said as well. That's been an incredible for our fans to back us the way they have done that. We are looking at all different ways. Don't know how long this pandemic will go on, and it's we're looking at different ways to see how we can improve. As you say, that the TV is one of them, but again, it's very selective because you've got the major ones like Sky TV, and them have got they're putting the money in, so it's to be able to. But hopefully, as I say, we're looking at all different avenues for the season tickets next year.
I was more meaning, Tony, that if we've purchased a season ticket, we've already paid. But
Yeah.
you know, some people work, for example, and can access it. You know, in the same way that you know overseas can get a restricted access. I was just wondering, you know, what would it be viable to allow season ticket holders who can't go the opportunity? You know, obviously we all want to be there, but you know, circumstances dictate.
Yeah, well, that's there this year. It's there this year, but the season tickets can watch the games. No, so for free.
Tony, as David, I think the question is that from next season, when season ticket holders are back in, if they can't make a match, can they watch it on TV? Can they watch it on TV? There's issues around that, and it's to do with showing matches in the UK at the moment. They can be shown outside of the UK, but not within the UK. So the licensing issues and all that kind of thing were relaxed for COVID to allow the matches to be streamed in the UK. But in general terms, when everything's normal-ish, that license isn't available. So you're not allowed to stream matches live in the UK.
Okay, thanks.
Well, that's great. Sorry, David, I picked up wrong there, but thanks for answering that. That's brilliant. The other question was who would love to bring to 6 years' time to play. If Lionel Messi's still at Barcelona, I think we've got that would be one, because we hold the Barcelona Cup, and I know the directors and Alan Wardrobe is one. It's always trying his best to push that, the Barcelona Cup replay, as we like. So Barcelona, maybe we Sir Alex Ferguson managing the Barcelona team would be fantastic.
Okay,
I think Alan's talked about that for next year, Tony, because that's the 100th anniversary next year.
Yeah, he's been trying that, but you're absolutely right. As I say, he's been pushing it, but next year I'd be, hopefully that happens. I really do. And I know he works so hard to get that, and he has been for a number of years now trying to push that. So it'd be fantastic. Well, if it's no Barcelona, Man United probably with Fergie.
Okay, thank you.
I just think Barcelona might be afraid of taking a hiding. I'm not sure. So we've got Alex Dillon. Alex, are you there? Would you like to come in?
Yeah, that's fine. And before I start, Jim, congratulations on the contract. And I think I speak on behalf of everybody in the call that you're probably the first manager since Danny Lennon that I think's got a natural affinity for the club and an appreciation of what the fans put into the club. You're forever grateful. I don't think the past 4 or 5 managers have shown the same level of appreciation. The question really for Tony, you've said, Tony, 3,000 season ticket holders given their all for the club and beyond. Next year, COVID is still going to be here. How has that impacted how the clubs have approached the running behind the scenes and the firming up of the playing budget for next year is the first question. And the second one, Ian had just touched on it. Say we're allowed to get some season ticket holders back in. What is the process that's going to be in place to choose what season ticket holders will get in and how often?
Yeah, it's good questions. As I say, that the last one there, sorry, can you hear me okay? I'm not trying to make things, but I've been finding it hard to pick up. I missed some of the first bit of the question there, Alex, sorry.
No, I'm saying, Tony, that if fans are allowed back into stadiums but in reduced numbers, what is the process that's going to be in place from the club to identify what fans can get in and, you know, how often, 8 games a season or whatever? How would we work that out in terms of fans getting back in?
Yeah, well, that's going to be a difficult one, as we say. The first and foremost, if I can go back to thanking fans again, the 3,000 or 3,500 season ticket holders for this year have played a major part in us being able to bring in the quality of players. Next year, you're right, Alex, sure the pandemic could still be with us. Again, we're working on these things to see, because if we do get 3,006, if we're allowed, I don't know, maybe it'd be, hopefully we'd be allowed 2,000 in maybe the stadium. They were talking about 300 folk and then 600 folk, and it would need to be done. I mean, we'll work round that to see the best possible way and the fairest way to do that. You know what I mean? It's a difficult one to answer now to say, right, we'll do it this way or that way, but we are working behind the scenes in terms of if it's going to be 1,000 folk in, or, as I say, the feedback was at the time it was going to just be 300, and then it's built up to 600. So it's going to be very difficult. But please, and I'm saying this, I know again, and you can't underestimate the season ticket for our football club, honestly, and not even just for the budget. It's for keeping people in a job. I mean, for cleaning staff to Mags that does the food, everything like that. And as I say, I know Jim's forever grateful. He's saying that to the supporters, and we're all the same board level. That it's so important to us. But again, we can't just keep saying to the season tickets, buy a season ticket. We need to come up with ideas that's going to excite the fans to do that as well. And we're working on different things to do that.
yeah, one of the things that we've spoken about at a lot of the board meetings is, we are trying to come up with ways that we can thank everyone who's supported the club. Everyone who's bought a season ticket, everyone who's contributed with the pay-per-view TV and all the rest of it. We are constantly trying to come up with something instead of, we literally can't thank you enough. We're trying to find ways of, materializing that. So we are, we're not just taking this for granted. We are actually trying to think of something, and it might be, when things are a little bit back to normal, an exhibition match or something like that. There will be something done, something physical that you can remember, and be proud of the support you've given the club this year.
Brilliant. Thank you to Tony and David. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to try and get the whole thing wrapped up for 8:30. That would be 90 minutes. So I think we've got one more question to come, and then we'll hand back to Jim. Derrick Stevenson is the next person in the queue. Derrick, do you want to come in and fire away?
Yep, I'm here. Yeah, so I'm calling in from France, which isn't quite as far as California. So, but I'd have to say just quickly that Cimarron TV over the last years has been immense. It's been fantastic for me, because I've been a Cimarron supporter all my life, and especially this year, being able to see every home and away match, it's almost been a blessing for me. So thank you. So I would just like to speak to Jim a little bit, because he's been quiet for way too long now, and I want to come back to footballing matters. So looking at the table and looking at our home and away form, it's pretty clear that we seem to be doing pretty good away from home. We've picked up 20 points so far, but at home we've only picked up 13 points. I mean, have you had any thoughts around why our away form is so much better than a home form? And is there any way that you can address that? Because I think if we could start picking up the same points at home as we do away, we'd easily be a top 16.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. There's no doubt that the away form is better in terms of the points that we've managed to accumulate on the road. There was a really good stat that came out a couple of weeks ago about the form table kind of going out the window in terms of home advantage, and people were picking, a lot of teams are picking up more points on the road than what they would normally do. So I think sometimes as well, you need to look at the kind of the fixtures and how they balance out as well. I think, we've played a game more away from home as well at the moment, which would maybe, you could argue, 3 of those points, the difference. But also we maybe have had some easier games away from home than what we have had at home as well. I think it's a really difficult one to put your finger on. There's no doubt the players would always prefer to play here at the stadium, ideally with a full house of you guys behind them cheering them on, and we've got 4 home games now to look forward to. So hopefully in a couple of weeks' time, when you look at that form table and you see the points difference, hopefully the points difference will outweigh the away difference, and that's what we're hoping to achieve. But it's a really difficult one, Derek, to just give you an answer to. Sometimes there's a lot of different factors involved in that. I could argue the Hibs game here where we lost 3-0, where we're running around trying to find the goalkeeper 3 hours before kickoff, had a huge impact on what happened on that afternoon. So
just a tad.
Yeah, so there are a number of other excuses I could give you, but like I say, hopefully with the 4 good home fixtures that we've got coming up, if we take 12 points from the next 4, then our home form will far outweigh the away form.
Okay, excellent. I'm looking forward to that total at the end.
And thanks for tuning in and all your support from France as well. Thank you.
No worries, anything.
So thank you very much, Derek. I think in terms of the distance travelled competition, we've got we've got a couple of guys here from Bangladesh as well, so I'll need to get Google Maps out and work out whether Auckland or Bangladesh is further. I couldn't do that one in my head, but it's brilliant to see guys that are so far flung, and it's that one thing that has been a kind of, I guess, an unintended benefit of being able to do this kind of event via Zoom, is that it opens it up to some of you guys that are further flung. We used to do these things in at the stadium and actually realise the SMiSA membership and the fan base there's quite a lot of people who are spread around the world. So great that you guys are able to join us. So I think for the last thing, I'm hoping we'll aim to get finished in 10 minutes or so. But Jim, I believe you are going to share your screen. You have something to show us.
No, I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I'm not always great when it comes to the technology side of things, but it was funny. I was going through some of the documents that I've got saved on my laptop, and I came across my vision that I had for St Mirren Football Club prior to me going to meet the board of directors before taking the job, and I didn't quite need it because it wasn't an interview process where there was 3 or 4 of us going for the role. I was, offered the job and obviously accepted it. So I didn't need to share this with Tony or with the rest of the directors at the time. But I thought it was really interesting when I was reading through a lot of it, and bearing in mind that I put it together 19 or 20 months ago. But a lot of what I was thinking about at that particular moment in time is starting to come through now. And I think what I'm just trying to say is that in order to get the kind of things that we're all looking for, sometimes you need a little bit of time to do it. And, the constant changing of personnel doesn't help. And hopefully when I share the screen here, it'll give you a better idea of what I'm talking about. And Tony hasn't seen this yet, so apologies, Tony, if there's nothing in it surprising, but it is something that I was going to share with you on the evening, Tony, 19 months ago. So hopefully this works, guys. Give me a second.
Really strange, Jim, because I remember you gave us all a copy of that.
Oh, well, there you go then.
Yeah,
there you go, David.
I had a look through it a few weeks ago.
Well, there you go. So let me just open it up here, and hopefully it'll work. All right. So, are you seeing that just now? Yeah.
Yep, got it.
Yep.
So I presented this to the board just in paper copy, but I didn't have the requirement to go through it on the night because we very much just got straight to talk about business and whether I was willing to come on board or not. And there wasn't a great deal of selling needed on the club's part to me. So I was pleased to say it all went pretty easily. But just to give you an idea of what my vision for the club was and how I thought we were going to get there. I want to develop St Mirren to be recognised as one of the best in class football club. And I know that's a big statement and it's difficult to get there with the lack of resources that we've got. But I believe that we need to reach for that. And if you can read there, it's a relentless focus on talent development and success on the pitch to generate the multiple income streams needed to ensure the financial well-being and long-term sustainability of the club. So I don't want to bore you all to tears and make this last half an hour, but I think that answers a number of questions that have been asked tonight as well. The vision will be realised by focusing on the following key areas. So initially, when we were talking about the job, obviously I had to review and assess the squad that was there, what I inherited when we went to Pinatar, but I won't go through them all. But the primary short-term objective, the second last one, was to re-energise and refresh the current squad to make them successful in 2019-20. So we had a relatively successful season last year. We got to the quarter-final of a national cup, and obviously, equalled our best finish of 8th in the Premier League table. How we were going to do that was with strong leadership and long-term and short-term objectives. So the values, just to give you an idea, and I think, we talk about characters and we talk about everything else, but the values are very, very easy. There needs to be a clear and consistent set of values to create a culture that everyone associated with the clubs, you guys, the fans, the players, the management, the staff and the board, that we all embrace and that we all want to live by. And establish a culture, an ethos of togetherness with a common goal to serve the best interests of the football club. And that's, again, what we're all trying to do right now. And that's what I'm trying to do day in, day out within the club. I want to develop St Mirren as a byword, and embodying all that is good about professional football in Scotland. There needs to be that pathway from first team, youth team, and all of our teams need to be embedded in the community of Paisley. And I think you can agree that that's something always at the forefront of our minds, both myself and Tony, to try and have the dialogue needed with you guys to have more of these kind of evenings. I think the Zoom is brilliant because, as we just said there, we've got guys in France, guys in California, and hopefully even when we do get back to doing these kind of things in the stadium, we'll still be able to carry on a Zoom call on a big screen where you guys will still be able to be involved on the evening, because I think that is vital. My philosophy, my ideas, whatever you want to call it, the top one there, high standards of professionalism are a minimum requirement. That starts with me, and hopefully then that will rub off onto the players. We want to play a high-tempo style of football that is attractive to you, the fans. We'll look to try and sign only players who have got a high work ethic and a willingness to learn. Fitness levels of the players, again, is something we touched on tonight. It must be of a very high standard to be able to carry out the high-intensity type of football that we expect of the team. Again, those things don't happen overnight. We need to recruit the right players with the right mindset. They need to buy into our ideas on the training pitch. And with that, we need to employ the right sports science team and medical team. We've got a great sports science that's in Junior Mendes, and we've hired, in my opinion, since I've came in, I've been able to make some changes in the medical team as well. And I think we've got the best physio in the country. And I don't say that lightly. I know Celtic and Rangers might be paying their guys a lot more than our guy, but I've worked with a lot down through the years of my career. And Kevin Bain, for me, is right up there. And it's a really important position to keep players fit and keep players available. So the players will always, the fourth last one, always be aware of the roles and responsibilities within the team. St Mirren will do our best to develop dynamic players with agility and speed. Only players with ambition to improve will be considered for St Mirren, and our scouting department will only identify players with these attributes. There's only a couple of more slides, guys. I don't want to bore you all with it, but the blueprint, what I think we as a club and we as a business should always be trying to adhere to, and this isn't set in stone. These kind of things can be modified as we go along, but St Mirren's reputation as an excellent development club capable of attracting the best coaching and playing talent available should always be at the forefront of our minds as a club and as an organisation. Establishing an innovative and open approach to coaching, to leverage my extensive network and contacts within the game to complement the club's current scouting setup, which is something I'm really big on. I've got fantastic contacts in Ireland. Made some great friends down in England during the 8 years of my playing career down there. Tony's got fantastic contacts as well within the game through his career. So between us all, we're working really hard on that one. We want to recruit young, energetic, committed players with the right attitude and the potential to play at a higher level. And that gets back to the point I made earlier. I don't want to sign a 22-year-old who wants to be at St Mirren for the next 14 years of his life. I want them to come and give us 2 really good seasons, attract a big club where we get a huge lump sum of money from them, but the club also gets to go and fulfill the potential at a bigger club. There needs to be a clear pathway to the first team from youth team, all the development teams, personal development programs for all the players. We've got a number of players in the squad. We've got some guys in their 30s, some guys in their mid-20s, some teenagers. They don't all work at the same speed. They don't all need the same program. So again, the sports science team are constantly working on developing those individual programs. Everybody's opinion is valued, whether that's at board level, you guys, the supporters. We've all got different opinions. I'll pick a starting 11 at the weekend or on Wednesday night. No doubt, there's nearly 100 of us on the call, and we'll all have a different opinion on who should be playing and who should be playing where. But I respect everybody's opinion, all of that in my backroom team especially, and I listen to them. Everyone clear on the role in the club and what's expected of them. And I think it was, let me see, where are we at? It was Donald in California. You were talking about partnerships with bigger clubs and partnerships with smaller clubs, and that's the last point there. If you see it, we want to try and develop partnerships all over the place to give us the best opportunity of succeeding. The football style, you can only play a certain style of football that suits the certain group of players that you've got. And you know, when I first came in, I inherited a number of players that all really good guys. You know, they all left on good terms, but they didn't necessarily fit the criteria for what I wanted in order for us to take the club forward to the next level. So, you know, I want us to play good possession football on the ground. I want us to be controlling opponents, be in their faces when we don't have it, play a flexible, high-tempo style of football that is attractive to you, the supporters. As I touched on there, the fitness levels of the players need to be high. Fit and dynamic players, agility and speed, and winning the ball back as quickly as possible. If you see that little pyramid there, it pretty much states everything that we're talking about within this call and the kind of questions that you guys have asked. The continuous development pathway for the kids. There needs to be discipline within the group. Manners and respect are, you know, something that for me is non-negotiable. Exemplary work ethic, controlled aggression, and you'll note I put the word controlled in there before the aggression. And I'm asking the guys to go and be aggressive with the opposition. Don't over-respect the likes of Celtic and Rangers. Let's go and get in their faces. Let's go and make the tackles required. Let's run over the top of them. We need creative players. We want to be entertaining, and we want to try and win in style. And that little box there, we want to attract more supporters to enjoy the action. And if we get that little pyramid right, then hopefully the numbers coming through the gates will be higher. And then those little characteristics there, I won't go through them all, but how I assess the current squad, but also how I recruit in the future. I want honest people. I want inquisitive people with a positive mentality, exemplary work ethic, demand of themselves, not constantly needing told what to do, enthusiastic and good decision makers. And that, I think, probably is as good a template as we've got at the moment to work to. And I think if I continue along that road with the support of Tony and the rest of the board and you guys, the fans, then I think the future is bright for our football club. It's as simple as that. And I think, as I said, we'll never get it right all of the time, but it's really important that you guys know there are people at the club, both in the football department, but at board level, that care about the situation just as much as you guys. And although I might make decisions sometimes you don't agree with, I make them for the right reasons. And your support is never, ever taken for granted, especially during these hard times financially for everybody. So I just felt now was the right time to share that with you and just to give you an idea of my mindset, because as I said, talk is cheap. But when I look back on that, something I wrote 19, 20 months ago, a lot of what I've put down there on paper is starting to come through now. And as I said, that can be managed, that can be adjusted, and it will be continuously adjusted. The better we get, the higher we get up the table, our ambitions will change along the way. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Jim. That was tremendous. Brilliant insight into the way you approach things, and I'm sure everybody found that really, really valuable. So I guess we're almost about the end of the night, so I think we can probably let everybody go just now. Just before we go, I would like to say a massive thank you to Jim and to Tony on behalf of everybody at SMiSA for giving up your tonight to join us, and I'm sure the members on the call would join us. It's fascinating insight and some really, really interesting stuff. Tony, I don't know, do you have anything that you want to finish up on just before the end?
No, just a big thank you to everyone, and the support throughout this year has been incredible. So, for myself personally, but for the whole club. And I think, as I say, it's been an incredible year, but a big thanks to everyone. And it's humbling to be part of this brilliant football club, honestly.
Fantastic. So thank you very much. Jim, any final words?
No, just the same as Tony. Listen, we don't ever, like I just said there, we don't ever take your support for granted. We know how much you care about the situation. We care just as much, and we're all as determined as ever to take this club to the heights that we all believe it should be at. We've underachieved for too long, and we're going in the right direction now. And with your support, we'll go even higher. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much to the guys, and thank you for everybody who's joined us. Hope you've enjoyed the night, and we'll look to do more of this kind of thing in future. All right.
Thank you very much, Colin.
Good night,
Colin.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.